The steady hum of Zeke's plasma torch filled the cramped repair bay, echoing off the rusted metal walls like the heartbeat of some old mechanical beast. Outside, a thick drizzle hissed against the corrugated roof, and neon reflections from Rusttown's market flickered like dying stars in the oil-slick puddles. Zeke wiped sweat from his forehead, smearing a black streak of grease across his brow. Another late-night job, this time a cracked fusion intake on a courier's shuttle that looked like it had been through a meteor shower and back. Just as he bent over the intake manifold, something outside caught his eye, a shimmer like heat haze but sharper, warping the air. He squinted, torches still humming, as a sleek silver vessel, its lines too smooth and too symmetrical for any local build, slid to an uneasy stop on the tarmac. The ship's hull bore faint etchings that glowed gently in the rain, like stardust caught in a spider's web. "Sweet plasma on toast," Zeke muttered, letting the torch die. "Now that's a fancy tin can." The hatch hissed open, releasing a breath of mist that smelled faintly of ozone in old books. A figure emerged, tall, composed, wrapped in a flowing dark coat that flared slightly at the hips, revealing legs like they'd been carved from marble. She moved like a dancer on zero gravity, graceful even on the uneven tarmac. And those ears, long, elegant, and curved, peeking out from beneath her hood like delicate antennae. Zeke cleared his throat, hoping his voice didn't crack. "Well, hey there, stranger. Need a quick patch job? Or is this more of a catastrophic meltdown situation?" She glanced at him, her eyes luminous under the flickering work lights. "It's complicated," she said, her accent lilting in a way that made the words sound like music. "I had a bit of a scuffle on the edge of the Draken Belt. I could use a skilled mechanic." "Lucky for you, you just landed on the doorstep of Rusttown's most questionable mechanic," he replied with a grin. "Name's Zeke. I fix things. Usually." Her lips twitched, a hint of amusement. "I suppose that will have to do." She extended her hand, and he noticed a faint glow emanating from the lines of her palm, like a living circuit. They shook, and he couldn't help but stare at her ears. Long, graceful, and unmistakably not human. He'd seen enough alien traders pass through Rusttown to know that wasn't a standard issue. Still, he played it cool, though his mind buzzed with questions. He led her inside, past piles of half-disassembled speeders and scrap bots with wires for guts. "Make yourself at home," he said, gesturing to a cracked chair with stuffing like tumbleweed. "I'd offer you coffee, but the last batch tried to chew its way out of the pot." She gave a soft laugh like crystal wind chimes. "I'll manage." As he pried open the ship's engine compartment, she hovered near his shoulder. "Your tools," she remarked, eyes lingering on his battered plasma welder. "They're primitive," Zeke snorted. "Primitive? Lady, that's vintage craftsmanship right there. That plasma welder's got more stories than the Rusttown rumor mill." She arched an elegant eyebrow, her ears tilting forward. "Does it tell stories often?" "Only after 2 drinks, he shot back, and she laughed, a sound so warm it made the hair on his arms stand up. Underneath the laughter, though, something hummed, a tension in the air, like an ion storm gathering at the edge of the system. Zeke could feel it in the way her gaze lingered too long on the engine's heart, or how her fingers trailed over the hull as if it carried the weight of memories. But for now, he focused on the job. Sparks flew, the ship's core hummed, and her laughter, so unexpected and so human, made the night feel a little less cold. Zeke's torch cast a wavering glow over the ship's interior, illuminating circuitry that looked like it had been grown rather than manufactured. Thin, vein-like conduits pulsed with an ethereal light, every twist and junction humming with a low, musical resonance. He ran a calloused hand along a curved panel, tracing a series of symbols that shimmered in shades of blue and violet. "You know," he called over his shoulder, "I've seen some oddball rigs in my day. Hydraulic clusters that thought they were dance instructors. A reactor core that meowed every time I flipped the switch. But this takes the plasma biscuit." She leaned against the hull, her long ears dipping forward as if listening for a secret only she could hear. "It's standard design in the Vega cluster," she said, voice half amusement, half nostalgia. "Though perhaps it looks exotic to you." Zeke chuckled, shaking his head. Lady, the only thing I've seen more exotic than this is Old Man Grubber's hairpiece. Floats 6 inches off his head, even on windless days. Her laughter, soft, crystalline, echoed through the ship's confines, blending with the hum of its systems. She'd removed her hood, revealing a cascade of silver hair that framed her face like moonlight on water. Her long ears, slightly translucent, flickered when she laughed, catching the torchlight like tiny auroras. He pointed at a panel that seemed to be both metal and something alive. This here's your power distributor, right? Except it's got tendrils, and they're twitching. She moved beside him, her fingers grazing the panel with an almost reverent touch. The tendrils calmed, pulsing gently under her hand. It's bioengineered, she explained, her tone casual. A hybrid of synthetic and organic matter. Faster response times, self-repairing. Zeke whistled low. Self-repairing, huh? Wish I had one of those for my knees. She smiled, eyes twinkling. You could always ask the ship politely. Zeke's grin widened. Right. Hey, ship, want to lend me some spare parts? He knocked gently on the hull, and the panel responded with a faint ripple of bioluminescence. Hey, it works! She laughed again, her laughter dancing in the confined space. And for a moment the ship felt less alien and more like a cozy, if quirky, home. Still, beneath the jokes, Zeke's curiosity gnawed at him like a hungry drone. So, not to pry, but what's a ship like this doing on a backwater mudball like Rusttown? She hesitated, her long ears drooping just a fraction. Business, she said too quickly. Her gaze flicked away, lingering on the bulkhead as though it might sprout answers. And trouble. Ah, Zeke said, nodding sagely. Business and trouble. The Rusttown double special. He winked. You got a name to go with those ears? She gave a small, almost shy smile. Elira. Elira, he repeated, rolling the name around his tongue like a secret. Nice to meet you, Elira. I'd offer you a handshake, but I think my hands are still radioactive from that last power coupling. She reached out anyway, her fingers brushing his with a warmth that belied her otherworldly appearance. I trust you, she said simply, and the ship's lights pulsed brighter for a second, like it approved. He stared at her, at the trust in her eyes, the way her long ears framed her face, and felt a pang of something he couldn't name. Then he shook it off. All right, Elira, he said, squaring his shoulders. Let's see what kind of cosmic mess you've got under this hood. She laughed again, low, musical, and for a fleeting moment, even the biolights in the walls seemed to join in, as if the ship itself was in on the joke. Zeke bent to his work, torch flaring, sparks dancing like tiny stars. Outside, the rain kept falling, drumming a steady beat that made the ship feel like a world all its own. The rain outside had eased to a steady patter, but inside the ship, tension crackled like a live wire. Zeke, sleeves rolled up and torch in hand, leaned deeper into the heart of the vessel, where conduits hummed with a soft glow. His eyes followed a tangle of filaments that seemed to braid themselves together whenever his hands approached. I'm telling you, he muttered, this wiring's got a mind of its own. Elira stood behind him, arms folded across her chest, her long ears catching the faint bioluminescence from the panels. It's designed to, she said, a mischievous glint in her eyes. The ship's neural core adapts to its pilot. That's why it's, well, a bit sensitive. Zeke barked a laugh. Great! I always wanted to date a ship with trust issues. She grinned, her silver hair catching the overhead lights like a halo. Be gentle. She's had a rough journey. Like I haven't, Zeke quipped. But beneath his sarcasm, he felt a strange kinship with the vessel. A ship that adapted and evolved, never quite the same twice. His torch sputtered, illuminating a hidden seam in the hull. Curiosity piqued, he pressed a panel, and it hissed open to reveal a chamber unlike anything he'd ever seen. Inside, nestled like a precious relic, lay a suit of armor that shimmered with iridescent scales. It looked ceremonial, with intricate engravings along the chest plate that caught the light and danced like living runes. Next to it lay a staff, its length humming with a subtle, resonant energy. Elira? He called, voice echoing in the small chamber. You collecting ancient alien cosplay gear in here? Her smile faltered and her long ears twitched as if hearing something he couldn't. She stepped forward, her eyes distant. That's my regalia, she said softly as if confessing a secret. Regalia, Zeke repeated, rolling the word around like a loose bearing. So you're, what, a high priestess? Galactic rock star? Queen of the disco ball? She laughed, a short, bright sound that seemed to slice through the ship's hum. Something like that, she said, though her voice trembled just enough to catch his attention. He let his torch drop a little, the light casting shifting shadows on her face. Seriously, Elira, who are you? She took a deep breath, her silver hair shivering as if catching the ship's current. Was Queen of the Astral Spheres, she said, the title tumbling from her lips with a weight that made the ship itself seem to hold its breath. But a war changed everything. I've been hunted ever since. Zeke felt his own breath catch. Queen, he echoed, as in ruling planets and stuff? Space parades? Royal decrees? She managed a small smile, her long ears dipping. And taxes. Lots of taxes. Zeke blew out a low whistle. Well, guess I've been fixing up royalty this whole time. Should have charged extra. Her laughter, bright and genuine, warmed the confined space. Too late now. But beneath the banter, her eyes held shadows. Memories of lost worlds, of people and places she could never return to. Zeke felt it too, a pull he didn't fully understand. He reached out, gently closing the hidden compartment. Hey, Elira, he said, voice softer than before. I may be just a grease monkey from Rusttown, but if you need help, well, you're in the right place. She looked at him then, truly looked, and something between them shifted. Her ears tilted forward, catching the ship's glow like a pair of silvered wings. Thank you, Zeke, she said, her voice steady. I think I'm finally ready to finish this journey. He gave a lopsided grin, his torch sparking back to life. Then let's get this ship humming like a warbler on jet fuel. The laughter that followed felt like a promise of something brighter. The air inside the ship had taken on a different quality, charged as if the ship itself were holding its breath. Zeke ran a diagnostic scanner over a tangled mess of conduits, the screen flickering with readouts in a language that looked suspiciously like advanced math had decided to throw itself a disco party. Gonna need a universal translator just to read this, he muttered. Elira stood at his elbow, her long ears perked forward, their tips faintly glowing in the bioluminescence that pulsed through the walls. You're doing fine, she said with a smile that warmed even the coldest corners of the ship's cramped corridor. He snorted. Fine? Lady, this thing's got more hidden compartments than my Uncle Merv's prize pumpkin at the county fair. She arched an eyebrow, head tilting in that graceful way of hers. Your Uncle Merv's prize pumpkin? Long story, Zeke grumbled, ducking under a conduit that hummed like a lazy cat. Let's just say it was rigged for smuggling. Didn't end well. Before she could ask, a low hum filled the air, a sound like metal breathing. Zeke turned just in time to see a shimmer ripple along the corridor walls, like light on water. Then figures stepped from the shadows, their forms materializing with a soft, almost polite chime. They were tall, armored in a fluid metal that seemed to shift color every time the biolights flickered. Their helmets resembled insect carapaces, smooth and featureless, except for the thin slits that glowed with a faint blue light. One of them stepped forward, his voice like the rumble of distant thunder. Your radiance, he said, bowing low. Zeke's plasma torch slipped from his grasp, clattering to the floor and rolling in a slow arc. Radiance? He repeated, his voice climbing an octave. You've been holding out on me, Elira. She met his wide-eyed stare with a calm that belied the moment. I tried to tell you, she said softly, her long ears tilting forward, catching the glow of her guard's armor like a crown. But you're surprisingly stubborn. Hey now, Zeke said, holding up his hands. I may be stubborn, but I'm also charmingly naive. One of the guards let out what might have been a sigh, though it sounded like a venting plasma valve. We must depart, your radiance, he intoned. The council awaits your return. Zeke felt his stomach drop like a bad hyperdrive. Council? You've got a council? With robes and all? Elira's smile turned wry. Some of them have robes, yes, though a few prefer ornamental wings. Zeke clapped a hand over his face. Ornamental wings. Great. I'm neck deep in a cosmic soap opera. A ripple of laughter rolled through the guards like wind chimes in a breeze. Even Elira's ears twitched in amusement. You've done more than you know, she said, stepping closer to him. You treated me like a person, not a queen, not a fugitive. Zeke looked at her, at the glow in her eyes, the tilt of her long ears, and the ship humming gently around them. Well, I'd like to think I treat all my customers equally, no matter how many ornamental wings they've got. She reached for his hand, her fingers warm against his calloused palm. Come with me, Zeke. I could use a mechanic with your unique charm. Zeke blinked. Me? On a royal spaceship? You're serious? One of the guards made a sound suspiciously like a snort. Elira's smile widened. Serious? And the council might need someone to keep the engines honest. Zeke's grin spread slow and lopsided. Well, if you put it that way, who am I to say no to a queen with a sense of humor? The ship's walls seemed to glow a little brighter, as if approving. And in that moment, even surrounded by alien guards and the hum of advanced tech, Zeke felt like he'd found something worth the leap. The ship's engines thrummed with a deep, comforting resonance, a sound that had once seemed so alien to Zeke, but now felt as familiar as the clank of his old plasma torch. Standing on the bridge, he surveyed the view beyond the viewport. Stars spilled across the darkness like diamonds scattered by some cosmic jeweler. Elira stood beside him, her silver hair catching the glow of the console lights. Her long ears, now uncovered, flickered as she tilted her head, listening to the hum of her ship. She wore her ceremonial regalia now, scaled armor that shimmered like a living constellation, the staff resting lightly in her grip. Yet she seemed smaller, more real, the weight of her title tempered by the vulnerability she'd shown him. Zeke cleared his throat, the sound loud in the stillness. So, let me get this straight. We're on our way to some interstellar council meeting where they might want to, I don't know, put your head on a fancy plate for skipping town? Elira let out a soft laugh, her long ears tilting with amusement. A ceremonial platter, perhaps, but thanks to you, I'm ready to face them. Zeke leaned back against the console, arms crossed. Well, let's just hope they're as forgiving as your ship. She's got more hidden compartments than my uncle's tax records. She laughed, a sound that had grown easier over the days they'd spent together. Your sense of humor has been enlightening, she teased. He grinned. Hey, I've been called worse. At least I didn't short out your neural core. Outside, the stars shifted, the ship aligning itself with a new heading. A ripple of anticipation ran through the bridge, the lights brightening as if the ship itself were excited. One of the guards, still armored like a walking mirror ball, entered with a small nod. Your Radiance, he said, voice even. The council has acknowledged your approach. They await your presence. Zeke shot her a look. Ready to meet your destiny? Elira's gaze softened as she looked at him. I was running from it, she admitted, but you reminded me what I was fighting for in the first place. She paused, stepping closer. You reminded me of the people I loved, of laughter, of home. Zeke felt his throat tighten. Hey now, he said gruffly, don't go getting all sappy on me. I'm just the hired help, remember? She reached up and brushed a smear of engine grease from his cheek, her fingers lingering. You're more than that. You're my friend. Zeke's heart thumped in a way that made him think he might need a checkup. Well, he said, voice cracking just a little, I guess you're stuck with me now. She smiled, radiant, her long ears flicking forward. Good, because I'd like you at my side when I face the council. I want them to see that I haven't forgotten where I came from, or who I've become. He stared at her, at the queen, the mechanic, the woman with the laughter that made the stars seem brighter. All right then, he said, his grin returning. Let's go give them a show. Together they walked toward the bridge doors, the guards falling in behind. The ship's systems hummed a bright, welcoming tune, like a prelude to a new beginning. Zeke felt lighter than he had in years. Maybe he'd always thought the universe was too big, too cold. But standing beside Elira, he realized that maybe it was just waiting for someone to make it laugh. As the doors slid open and the stars beckoned, he squeezed her hand, her long ears glowing softly in the light. And as the ship soared toward its destiny, so did he. No longer just a mechanic, but a friend, a partner, and perhaps, just perhaps, a hero.